I, 38M, have been married to my wife, 35F, for 2 years. She also has a daughter, 16F, from a previous marriage, but her dad has never been in the picture, so my wife has raised her daughter all by herself. My wife and I had been dating for 3 years before we got married, so I know her relatively well. She's always been very cautious with money, and I like that about her. As a single mother, she had to work really hard, so she'd always been good with money. My family was poor growing up, which is why I valued that as well. My wife had told me that she has a substantial amount of money set aside for her daughter's college funds, so she wouldn't have to rely on anyone else, and hopefully, her daughter wouldn't have to take a student loan either. But a few weeks ago, my wife told me that she'd spent all the money, and now, she expected me to pay for her daughter's college tuition. I didn't have a problem with it since I earned enough, but I did want to know what happened to that money. It wasn't a small amount, as far as I knew. She'd told me that it was around $100,000, which is a really big number, so it was alarming that she'd ended up spending it all. When I asked her what had happened to that money, she admitted that she'd used it for her shopping addiction. I didn't buy that for several reasons. My wife lived frugally before she met me, if I'm going by what she says, and even after we started dating, she was really careful with her money. And people don't just develop an addiction overnight and spend that kind of money in a day. Besides, there should have been something to show for it if she did indeed have a shopping addiction, which there wasn't. No new clothes, shoes, jewelry, makeup, or even appliances, and neither could she produce any receipts to prove where she'd spent the money. So I knew that she'd been lying about what had happened to the money. There was no way she'd spent it on shopping, but was trying to convince me of it for some reason. I did try to talk to her about this, but she got very upset that I didn't trust her and was questioning her honesty, so we ended up getting into a really bad argument. She just wouldn't admit that she'd been lying, and I didn't understand why. There was something really fishy about this situation, and I needed to know where she'd spent that sort of money because I suspected something really suspicious was going on. My stepdaughter was also really angry since this had been her college fund that her mother had drained. They'd also been fighting after my wife told her about it, and she refused to talk to her after that. So if I wanted to fix things with my family, then I'd have to get to the bottom of this somehow. I decided to take things into my own hands and find out where the money had gone, because by then, I knew my wife wasn't going to tell me the truth at any cost. I guess that should have been my cue to leave, but I loved her and wanted to believe the best of her, like people usually do when it comes to the people they love. Anyway, one day, while my wife was asleep and my stepdaughter was out with her friends, I decided to steal and enter the details of my wife's bank account on the website to check her statement. She had 2 cards and I checked both of them. Just as I'd suspected, there was nothing that had been spent at shopping malls or on online shopping, but most of the transactions were with several different restaurants. My wife definitely does not have an eating disorder, so spending $100K on restaurants was just absurd. When I looked up these restaurants on the internet, nothing suspicious came up either, so I was even more confused than before. So I decided to go even further and logged into my wife's email, hoping to find something there. I knew my wife's email address and password were saved on my laptop since that's what she used most of the time. Her own laptop was really old and slow, so she'd switch to using mine instead whenever she needed to, but mostly got her work done on her phone itself. She wouldn't even buy a laptop for herself, so how was I to just believe that she'd blown around $100K on shopping? When I started going through her emails, they were mostly either from work or promotional offers, and I was about to give up when all of a sudden, I noticed that she'd been receiving several emails from some joker as well. It sounded like a code name of sorts, and when I opened the email to read it, I was shocked because it said that the restaurants had received the money and soon enough, she'd have it back. Then another email, with the same sort of message. I didn't understand what exactly was happening, but I knew it couldn't be anything good. My first thought was obviously money laundering, but this was my wife's own money, that she'd saved up for years, so why would she even need to resort to something like this? And on top of that, there weren't just 1 or 2 restaurants that she was dealing with, but at least 7. I was very confused, and that's when I noticed another new email, which was just bad timing for her, and this one happened to be from my stepdaughter. The email only said that he was not there when she went to check, and she'd mentioned one of the restaurants that my wife had been dealing with. So that was another huge shock, because apparently, my stepdaughter was in on whatever my wife was up to. I couldn't believe any of this, and so, I shut the laptop as fast as I could and made a run for it. It was a pretty stupid decision, but I didn't know what else to do. I grabbed some important stuff that I'd need, got into my car, and drove to a friend's house. Didn't bother to explain and got in touch with my lawyer as soon as I could. I'd taken screenshots of everything and had taken pictures of my wife's card details as well, just to be on the safe side. I didn't know what exactly was going on, but I didn't want to end up on the wrong side of the law. I still can't bring myself to stomach the fact that my wife had not only been lying to me through her teeth about where the money had gone, but also that my stepdaughter had been in on it and they were just putting up an act so that I'd feel bad for her and give them the money. I was absolutely lost and didn't know what to do and didn't even know where to start. My wife would obviously notice that I was gone and I didn't want to speak to her, so I turned off my phone and decided to take a walk in my friend's neighborhood to clear my mind. When got back and checked my phone, there were several texts from my wife and a few missed calls asking me where I was, but I didn't respond to any of them. I spoke to my lawyer that day and told him that I wanted to file for divorce. I know it sounds hasty, but I absolutely couldn't afford to find myself in any legal trouble. Thankfully, I'd managed to keep our finances separate so far and I was hoping that the divorce would end soon. It would come as a shock to my wife, but whatever she was up to was an even bigger shock to me, so I think she can deal with it. She was served yesterday, and while she had been texting me on and off for these past few days, she wasn't trying too hard to find out where I was and didn't sound too worried in her texts, which meant that my suspicions were correct. She was up to something shady, which is why she didn't even care about her family. But after she was served, she started calling me nonstop to get a response out of me, and I merely texted back, saying that I knew. She's smart enough and responded saying that she just needed a chance to explain everything, but I don't think she deserves that chance. Not anymore. She had the chance to tell me, but she chose to hide it, and this doesn't seem like a small lie but a huge one. One that even my stepdaughter was in on, and they were definitely trying to fool me, and I can't just put that out of my mind. So what if I refuse to speak to my wife now? Update 1. I didn't speak to her like I'd said, and blocked her everywhere. I don't want to know what she has to say about any of this. The bottom line is that she and her daughter had been lying to me, and I know they've been lying to me about something really big. $100,000 is a huge amount, and now that I think of it, I never did find out how she managed to save that sort of money while still providing for herself and her daughter. I'm 99% sure now that she must have even obtained that money by some shady means. She used to be a high school teacher, and as far as I know, they really don't make that much, and there's no way she managed to save $100,000 all by herself. Initially, I thought that she must have inherited some money, but then later on I found out that her parents had passed away when she was really going, and she'd been raised by her aunt, who left her with a little over $20,000. I regret not thinking about all of these things earlier and taking our finances so lightly. I was so engrossed in our romance that I ended up ignoring something so fishy, and now, I don't know what to do. I don't even know exactly what's up, and even though I want to find out, I don't want to speak to her. My friend has been kind enough to let me stay with him, no questions asked, and has even told me that I don't need to pay rent for now, but it'll be great if I split the grocery and electricity bills for the duration of my stay. Right now, I don't know when or even if I can go back to our house. I don't regret leaving, since that was a rented house anyway. I don't know how my wife will manage to pay rent and all the other bills on her own, but that's the least of my concerns right now. My lawyer has told me that she has a month to respond to the divorce petition, but if she doesn't respond within that time, then we'll be free to do as we please and the divorce will be finalized on our terms. So I'm hoping that she doesn't respond. I know it's pointless, but I'm so anxious right now that I can't help but pray that I never have to see my wife or even interact with her ever again. It's not that I suddenly don't love her anymore, but I just can't bring myself to trust her. Being shady with money is a huge red flag for me, and I cannot forgive that and move past it like nothing's wrong. Update 2. Okay, so it's been 6 days since my wife was served, and since I've blocked her everywhere, she decided to send me an email from a new account that she'd created. I didn't want to read it because I didn't want to hear anything that I wouldn't like, but curiosity got the better of me and I decided to read it anyway. I'm in shock right now and I don't even know how to react to this. I'm still trying to process whatever she said, but I'm having a hard time since it's messed up, to say the least. I can't believe I married this woman without knowing the first thing about her. All through these years, none of this ever seemed to come up, and neither did I bother to dig into her past. I just believed whatever she told me, and now, I'm in this mess. It sucks that this is happening, and I know it sounds like I'm rambling, but I just don't know how to deal with my emotions right now. I'm all over the place and this close to tears, very honestly. I want to talk to someone about all of this, but the only person I want to talk to, my wife, is the root of all my troubles right now. Coming to the email, my wife essentially just confirmed what I'd already feared. The money that she'd saved was whatever she'd earned from selling drugs at the very high school that she used to teach at and the one her daughter currently attends. Yeah, it's horrifying. Not just students but even their parents would sometimes approach her, since it was a private high school and only the elite were allowed to attend. She also sold a lot of her aunt's jewelry, which is how she got the rest of the money. She quit her teaching job after she met me and switched to working as an accountant at a company, but she'd always been worried about how she'd obtained the money, so a few months back, she got back in touch with a friend of hers back from when she used to sell drugs. I'm guessing you guys can figure out what happened next. The guy helped her get in touch with several restaurants which were just fronts for money laundering, but then, he disappeared and she ended up losing her entire savings and is now almost broke. She's still earning, but that's barely enough to get by for her, which is why she approached me for help. Her daughter had known about her side hustle and had even helped her in handovers sometimes, since the age of 13, which was just sickening, and was even trying to help her find her friend who disappeared. She told me that this was her only option if she wanted to get by as a single mom, so she did what she had to, but she wanted a fresh start after she married me, which is why she got in touch with her friend in the first place. She claimed that she was gonna come clean to me after a while anyway, but was too scared of how I'd react. She didn't want to lose me and had written several paragraphs about how sorry she was and that she never wanted to do anything shady ever, but her circumstances had forced her. She apologized to me and asked me to come back to her just so that she could have a second chance at making this marriage work. I don't know how she even expects me to go back to her after what she's confessed to. My wife is a literal criminal and she expects me to just go back to her and pretend that nothing is wrong. I don't know what she thought was going to happen, honestly. Did she really think that she'd come clean to me, I'd take pity on her and we'd go back to being a happily married couple once more? Is she that freaking delusional? She's lucky I haven't turned her in yet. And yeah, I'm saying yet because I certainly do have plans to do so. What she'd done was messed up and sickening. I grew up dirt poor, and if I'd wanted to, then I could have taken the easy way out and started selling drugs to earn some extra cash. But I didn't. I did what was honest and chose to do the right thing because I didn't want to end up on the wrong side of the law. Besides, selling drugs to teenagers, especially when you have a daughter who's around the same age, is just so disgustingly evil. I don't know what possessed her to do something like that. You guys can call me what you want, but I don't think anything justifies what she'd done. And she lied to me for 5 whole years. No matter what, I can't just forget that. Even if I do find it in my heart to forgive her for whatever illegal crap she'd been doing before she met me, I can't forgive her for lying to me for so long. I'd tried to be the best husband and had even accepted her daughter as my own, but if this is what I get in return for everything that I've done for them, then maybe they don't deserve me or my forgiveness at all. I haven't yet sent any of this to my lawyer yet, but I'm going to do that once I've managed to compose myself. Right now, I feel like my head is going to explode because of what I've just learned. My wife was a freaking drug dealer for several years before she met me. She lied to me for years and now, she wants me to forgive her. I know I keep repeating myself, but this is just so I somehow make sense of this. It still feels oddly unreal. But unfortunately, it really isn't. Update 3. My wife showed up at my friend's place today to meet me. Apparently, she'd been going to all of my friends' houses to look for me and had finally landed here. I didn't want to talk to her, like I'd said, and tried to force her to go away, but she didn't leave and stayed at the door, refusing to go away without talking to me first. I would have called the cops, but this was my friend's house and I didn't want to cause trouble for him. So I agreed to speak to her, but I was determined that I wouldn't let anything that she said change my mind or get soft. My friend even left the house to give us some privacy, and once he was gone, my wife started talking. She apologized once more, but then she started telling me that I needed to help her out and I couldn't just abandon her. She brought up our marriage vows and said that now when she needed me the most, I couldn't just abandon her and leave. She was struggling to pay the bills on her own, and at this rate, it seemed unlikely that she'd even be able to pay for her daughter's college tuition. She said that she needed me now, not just for the money but also because she missed me. I'll admit, I did feel like forgiving her and just letting it all go, but then I remembered her email and everything that she'd confessed to doing. I couldn't forgive that. I just couldn't. I told her that I wasn't going to come back or stop the divorce, and it would be in her best interest to not contest this divorce either. She didn't have the right to ask anything of me anymore, not after what she'd done. I couldn't hold it in anymore and just chewed her out. I'd held back and hadn't said a word to her, but I couldn't keep my feelings to myself anymore. I told her how betrayed I felt and that she'd ruined our marriage forever. There was no turning back anymore. She could have been honest with me right from the beginning and avoided all of this, but she'd chosen to lie, and that was something that I was never going to forgive. I'd treated her daughter like my own and crossed oceans for them, but all they'd done was lie to me, betray me, and tried to use me for money. She wanted to argue with me, but I didn't let her interrupt me and continued to rant until I ran out of breath. I could feel the tears coming in, but I wasn't about to let myself cry. Not in front of her, at least. My wife looked devastated, and I guess on some level she actually does love me, but none of it matters anymore. I can't be with someone who isn't transparent with me. She left after a while, still begging me to rethink my decision because we could still make this work. She even said that I didn't need to give her any money but just wanted me to come back to her and be there for her. I just said goodbye and slammed the door shut. And then, I had a good crying session because I don't think I've ever had to do anything more difficult in my entire life. This was incredibly tough, but knew that I had to do it. I know I'm gonna miss her and my stepdaughter, but I can't do anything to change the past. She is what she is and I am who I am. When my friend came back, I finally found the courage to tell him everything. He'd been letting me live with him for so long, so the least I could do was tell him the truth. He was very shocked because most of my friends believed that my wife was a shy, sweet, and introverted woman. As I did for the longest time, but unfortunately, I was mistaken. Update 4. It's been 3 weeks since I filed for divorce, and a few days back, my wife finally responded to the petition. She's not contesting the divorce, and I'm guessing it's because she can't afford to spend that sort of money on a good lawyer, and after what she's told me, I don't think it'd be a good idea for her to go up against me either. I'm relieved that she took my advice because I would hate to get into some long-drawn legal battle with her. I just want to move on from this and pretend it never happened. I want to forget about her and erase any and all traces of her from my life and heart. I haven't reported her to the police yet, but I did tell my lawyer about the email where she'd basically just confessed to being a drug dealer who sold drugs in a school, no less, and even used her daughter for it occasionally. It was a pretty big deal and a criminal offense, but I didn't know what to do. It had been in the past, so I don't even know if the cops would do anything about it now. I knew that if I reported her, I'd end up ruining her daughter's life as well, so I'm kind of conflicted right now, but I guess I'll figure out what to do. My lawyer thinks I should report her, just to stay clear on my part, and I believe that's what I will do eventually. I just need some time to deal with my emotions. It's been a tough couple of weeks and I don't know how I'll recover from this, but I'll have to bounce back somehow. And I know, with God's grace, I'll manage to get back on track soon enough. Just as soon as this divorce is done with. Keep me in your prayers, you guys.